Hi, my name is Tyler, and this is Aftertouch Audio. Before we start this video, I would like to officially announce that we are now on Discord. I am fairly active on there, so if you would like to join the Discord community, I have left a link in the description below. What is reverb? Well, if you boil it down to its simplest form, reverb is just the sound waves reflecting off of the surfaces surrounding a sound source. Different surfaces will cover the sound differently, from a drywall room, to a tiled room, a metal room, outdoors, behind a door, or in a cave. Each of these examples were recorded in my studio, but we can place the sounds in any environment using reverb. In post-production, we use reverb to not only help blend sounds recorded from different environments, but we also use reverb as a creative effect. Let's quickly break down the three different types of reverbs. When it comes to reverb choices, we really only have three main options to choose from: an algorithmic reverb, a convolution reverb, or a physical unit. Each category of reverb has its own advantages and disadvantages, but will all have similar settings. Let's quickly go over some of the advantages and disadvantages of each. Algorithmic reverbs tend to be easier to use at a basic level, can generate any kind of room without any external samples, and are less CPU intensive than a convolution reverb. Some of the disadvantages of an algorithmic reverb is that they tend to sound artificial when trying to recreate realistic spaces, and they tend to have an abundance of controls which makes them harder to master. Convolution reverbs tend to sound almost picture perfect and come with fewer controls, which makes convolution reverbs tend to be plug-and-play plugins. Convolution reverbs tend to have a nasty habit of eating up your computer resources, so they're more often utilized on bus tracks. Convolution reverbs also rely on external samples to recreate reverbs. This can be in the form of a sharp transient sound or a frequency sweep. You can also get very sound designy and throw in a drum loop in there and just see what happens. Physical reverb units are fantastic. They sound amazing, they take up little to no processing power, and they tend to warm up just about any sound you run through them. With that being said, they can get expensive, and I mean very expensive. They also don't have the versatility that some of their plug-in counterparts offer, and depending on what you're looking for, the coloring that the analog unit puts on your sound can be a negative thing. Now that you're familiar with the three types of reverbs, let's go over some of those common settings that you'll find on really any reverb unit. Reverb type. There are several types of reverb, and each of them has their own unique qualities. We have more common reverbs like hall, chamber, and room. Then we have more special types of reverb like plate, spring, and gate. There are plenty more types of obscure reverbs that you'll find, but these are one of the more common styles that you'll run into. Room size. Larger spaces typically create longer reverb tails, and they tend to sound wider within the stereo image. Increasing or decreasing the size of the room will increase or decrease the size of the reverb tail. Early reflections and pre-delay. Pre-delay or early reflections is the amount of time between the direct sound and the start of the early reflections. These first reflections are more defined and can sound more like an echo or delay, and less like reverb. Adjusting the pre-delay time will allow you to adjust the overall size of the room without increasing the decay time. This is probably the easiest control to use, as the higher the setting, the longer the reverb tail is. Ultra small rooms are any room less than 50 milliseconds. Small rooms can be anywhere from 50 milliseconds to 1.5 seconds. Medium-sized rooms can be anywhere from 1.5 to 2.5 seconds. Large rooms can be anywhere from 2.5 seconds to 4 seconds. Ultra large rooms are any rooms that are 4 seconds or longer. Once we get the size of the rooms dialed in using early reflections and decay time, it's time to color the room. Dampening and diffusion. These are the two most critical reverb settings for designing a reverb that accurately matches your source material. Dampening dissipates the vibrational energy before it can build up and radiate as sound. A room with softer surfaces like carpet, or a room filled with things that can block or absorb high-end energy, like a hall packed with people, or having your sound source on the other side of a door, will help absorb a lot of high-end energy within your reverberations. This effect tends to have a much warmer sounding room, and if you want to recreate this effect, we can get that by increasing the dampening settings. In a general rule of thumb, the more stuff that's in the room, the more dampening that needs to be applied. Diffusion, on the other hand, pushes the early reflections closer together, which thickens the overall sound. Reducing the diffusion will create more separation between your reflections and tends to sound more like an echo. We We can also use diffusion to recreate more reflective surfaces like tile, metal, drywall, and glass. Diffusion helps get you that nice washy sound or an echoey sound. Finding that nice balance between the two is really key in dialing in a perfect reverb setting. Challenge time. If you really want to master reverb, I have a really good challenge for you. If you check the link in the description, I have left 6 recordings for you of an acoustic guitar cover of the Joker's main theme, and I have played that recording within 5 different environments. Armed with the knowledge of how to use reverb, your job is to use reverb, EQ, and mixing to get as close as humanly possible to the sound of these rooms. Just like always, here's a few extra mixing tips on how to create more depth using plugins alongside of reverb. Volume equals distance. As you get closer to the sound source tends to get louder. Using volume is critical in setting perspectives and should be the first setting you reach for when you're trying to create more depth within your mix. EQ. The brighter the sound is, the closer the sound is to you. Dampening some of the high frequencies is required to recreate a lot of effects, including some space sounds, underwater sounds, and some slow motion sounds. But dampening the high end combined with volume adjustments will really help push your sounds back within a mix. Delay. Our brains are really sensitive to delay. So much so that we can unconsciously notice delays as short as 40 milliseconds. Putting a little bit of delay on your sounds tells your brain that the sound you're listening to is further away from you. Combined with every tip above, the more wet the sound is, the further back in the room the sound is pushed. Increasing the wetness of your reverb will push sounds further back in your room as you are hearing less of the direct sound and more of the reflections of the room itself. Creating depth can be very challenging, but getting better with both delay and reverb and really understanding how to use these effects can take your sound design and mixing games to the next level. If you like this video, please consider smashing the like and subscribe button, and if you're interested, head on over to the Discord community. Now go make some noise.